Yankees are still, in first place in the division. And is that the prevailing thought, Brian, is as much as you wanted to improve this team, you did not want to lose sight on the fact, you don't want to give up on the future, but this is a really good baseball team. Is just the starting pitching hiccup just that? Or how concerned were you going into the deadline that was an area that needed to be improved?
Well, I think it's an area we've been always trying to upgrade and improve if possible. The challenge, obviously, is being able to pull it off. And a lot, clearly a lot of our targets were not moved in the deadline at all. And, people that were speculated upon and people that were very clearly and understandably so attractive assets that, a number of teams came a-knocking for. But ultimately, because those teams chose to contend, they were not moved. And so, therefore, it chased you into some lesser attractive talent, and that's where we had disagreements on matches. So, the fallback, to address your beginning question is, we do have a very good team, and the better the team you are, the harder it is to improve upon it, but that doesn't negate any efforts to improve upon it, and we unfortunately were not able to add to the mix we have already had, and so it's disappointing that I wasn't able to do it. I'm not disappointed by the things I had to turn down, though, on some of the remaining players that were in the marketplace.
How interesting and appealing was Noah Syndergaard? Can you give us a little bit of insight? There's so much speculation on just the Mets really not wanting to give someone great to the Yankees. Did it ever actually come close to anything happening there?
Well, I don't want to talk about players specifically, but I guess I'll clean up a little bit of what you said. The Mets would never want to give anything to the Yankees,
right?
Just like I wouldn't want to give anything to anybody else either. It's just if you're getting something that compels you to do it, then that's where the rub is, and that's where the trick of the trade comes into play. And we were very aggressive with all teams that had players of interest. There was no player taken off the table from our perspective for certain players that met of certain categories. So we did what we could to match up. Part of maybe the true narrative, especially involving the Yankees and the Mets, would be, I'd say, it's the time when you're trading within the division or the time when you're trading with an intercity rival. If you're both trying to win and compete in the present, it makes it even that much more challenging. Usually you match up with those type of circumstances when one is thriving and the other is rebuilding, and obviously the Mets are not rebuilding, and we're not currently rebuilding, so we're both going for it, and right. I think the efforts by both parties have shown that that's the case, and therefore it makes it even that much more harder to do business with stuff off your 25.
Now, I know you don't like to speculate about things, but you were probably at a distinct disadvantage that Stroman was in your division, right? Would he have been much easier to obtain if he had been a Padre?
I can't answer or speak, to that. You'd like to think constantly, always, that the teams that are choosing to sell are selling, so they can, live to fight another day in the future. And so I think from Toronto's, perspective, they're what they're going to be selling to their fan base is that they took the best deal. Period. End of story. And so you got to. That's the only thing I can think of.
Well, let me ask it a different way. What the Mets gave up, are you confident you could have matched or surpassed?
I'd rather not say, because it would be inflammatory. Okay. So why bother? But at the end of the day, they found a match where their match, I guess, from Toronto's perspective, was higher than the other teams that were competing for Stroman.
Was Greinke ever a thought?
No, he really wasn't a thought with the no trade to the Yankees. So that was an unrealistic option.
Would that be somebody you would be interested in had he not had the no trade clause?
I wouldn't. I'm not going to. Okay. I probably said more than I should have, given the fact that he's residing in another team and stuff. But it was a great pickup by the Astros, no question.
All right, let's keep something you can talk about, which is your own players. Sometimes it feels like, to me, the Yankees are that kid trading cards who just loves all his good cards and doesn't want to give them up. Do you feel that you guys almost have an abundance of riches with young players and that it is hard to sort of decide on ones you would part with? Because it seems like there's so many that you guys have a lot invested in and believe in.
No, we definitely have a lot. We do have one thing that was a challenge for us to try to overcome a little bit is the way our system's currently set up in this time period. A lot of our, high-end prospects are at the lower levels, and clearly if you're in the rebuild mode and have, major league ready talent, you're going to subtract in trades from your club. You're going to want something back or multiples back that, you can, kind of roll with and plug with. And so, guys like Clint Frazier would have answered that question, and Davy Garcia, who's 20 years old, is now AAA, would have answered that question. But we've had a number of different injuries that have taken some guys out of play. Estevan Florial, for instance, as he was taking his next steps this spring, broke his wrist. We had Michael King, who had been nailing it and was really an attractive player for a lot of people's perspective, but he had a stress reaction that hasn't really pitched this season. We had two of our catchers that were our first and second round pick 2 years ago. Their seasons have been, ended with season-ending injuries. Albert Abreu is pitching at Double-A. He's got a big arm. We got him a Brian McCann deal. He had a biceps tendonitis, a bicep strain that happened a week before the end of the deadline, so he comes off the board. And so there was a lot of different things. So a lot of the talent matches were going to be coming from guys at the Tampa or Charleston lower levels or some of the high-end Latin guys. I mean, the one guy got asked a ton from us, which was exciting, was Vargas, who's the shortstop we got from Cuba. When we did the trade deadline international trade pool, we signed a kid for $2.5 million out of Cuba, and he's an 80 runner that's a pure shortstop, but he got asked by so many people for things, and normally, and he's just taken his first steps in the Gulf Coast League this year, and so that was exciting to see and hear. But again, it's chasing people down to the lower levels, which it makes it more difficult for us to really match up maybe compared to other clubs.